So today I want to show you how to build a mobile app using AI and set up database and payments all just in one tool. And this is one of my favorite mobile app building tools out there right now. I'm talking about Dreamflow, and today I want to show you how to use Dreamflow to build a mobile app, set up your database in Supabase, add authentication, and set up payments in your app, all inside Dreamflow. If you don't know me, my name is Chris, and for the last 15 years, I've been designing apps and advising startups on product and design. And with that said, let's jump straight into Dreamflow and start building your mobile app.
Build great products. Build great products.
So this is Dreamflow, and on the surface of it, again, it just looks like any other old AI app generating tool with a text box in the middle and some buttons here, and basically you just prompt it to create an app. But under the surface, there's actually a bunch of really interesting stuff going on here, which is very different to a lot of other app building tools, and even different to a lot of other mobile app building tools. And it's doing some things that nobody else is really doing in that space that really allows you to go from just an idea to a mobile app incredibly quickly, compared to some of the other options that are out there at the moment. Underneath, Dreamflow is built on Flutter, which is an open source framework for building basically multi-platform applications from a single code base. So you're building an app in this open source framework of Flutter, which will work across iOS and Android. So it's one code base for your apps on both app stores. And this is a very well supported open source framework that has been around for ages and is used by a ton of people. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to start building your app in Dreamflow. Now, the app idea that I want to create today is an app idea called 1 to 100, or like done in 100, something like that, which basically would help you to break down like complex goals into 100 simple steps that you could just complete one after the other in order to eventually reach your goal. So think of like a complex goal being like, I want to launch a business and make $20,000 a month in a specific area of expertise. Like if you could prompt that goal with a bit of context about you and break that down into 100 simple tasks that you could just do step by step, I think that would be super valuable. So let's write the first prompt in here, get building the project, and then I'll give you a demo and show you what it can do. So this is the initial prompt here. Let's build an app that takes complex goals and turns them into 100 simple steps that the user can complete in order to achieve that goal. The app would feature a main screen with text input asking the user to enter your goal, then take the user to a second step which asks for any extra information about the user that would help to create the 100 steps. And then when the user taps submit, that would generate the 100 steps and allow them to access that through a separate page, and then would also show up as a list on the main screen under like goals, and so that you can go back in and out of it at any time. I'm just going to go quickly over to Mobbin to find some design inspiration for this before we get started, so I can kind of get it to follow the design of an existing app here that I like the look of. I kind of want to go for something dark mode. I actually like the look of this one, so maybe we'll find something in here that we can use. Let's go back from here, let's find something else. I like this Coinbase wallet one, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this over and paste this into Dreamflow and say for design, follow the attached image using a dark mode interface with bold and saturated gradients used sparingly. Use a modern sans serif font for typography, and don't be afraid to go big and bold with headings. Let's give it that. So let's send that off to Dreamflow. So Dreamflow will now start building the project here, and it's going to take us through all of the steps, very similar to a lot of other AI app building tools, where it basically kind of plans out the app for us and then starts building the project. So you can see here, we've got the prompt, it's starting to generate a plan on the left hand side. We've got plan app architecture, add required dependencies, create data models, build user interface, develop the main app features, compile the project to check for errors and ensure all components are integrated correctly. And you've got the files that are being set up on the right hand side here. If you've used something like Replit before, then you'll be familiar with this kind of project planning start to a project. And as a fun little note, you can also click play asteroids in the top right hand corner here and just play an asteroid game whilst you wait for your app to be built, what I actually think is a great addition. Because, you know, sometimes these things, you like just watching an AI write 1,000 lines of code. We're already kind of stuck in the space between like the AI writing the code and actually being able to check it ourselves. And so that can be quite good. I mean, maybe it saves you from scrolling endlessly on Instagram or TikTok for, you know, another 10-15 minutes whilst you wait for it to actually build the project. Not that playing Asteroid is actually any more useful of your time. If I want to click here as well to see like view architecture plan, I can actually come into here and see a really detailed overall like architecture for this project as well. And for me, this is the sign of a really good product, because this is something which doesn't shy away from the technical side of building apps, because it still is very technical. And even though it's tailored for people who just want to kind of like build a mobile app from a prompt, it's not actually hiding any of this technical stuff. And it's also a platform that works really, really well. If you did want to bring developers into this, you can actually code everything in this platform as well if you wanted to. So it's a really familiar kind of space for a lot of different types of people to kind of work in. And even if you're just solo founding this, it's still super, super straightforward. And the team who built this have a really, really keen eye for design and user experience. And so it's actually super straightforward to kind of figure out where everything is. But let's wait for this to actually generate the app here, and then I can show you around the Dreamflow interface. I also think this is just one of the most underrated AI app building tools that people really aren't talking about that much. Similar to Leap for web apps, I really like Leap and Dreamflow are like my two favorite AI app building tools at the moment. And it's not lovable, it's not the big names, it's kind of those under the radar, slightly more technical app builders that have a much broader feature set that actually caters for you to set up a production ready app. So now we have our mobile app here. So what we've got is basically need inspiration, complete a 30-day wellness challenge. I actually think read one book each month from a different genre and expand your knowledge and perspective. I don't think this is, well, it's maybe kind of aligned with this. What's your goal? Enter your goal. Learn Spanish fluently. Get my 100 steps. In the right hand side here, I was expecting it to maybe ask me for like my OpenAI API key, but maybe this is already built in here. So I want to just break down a few of the features in Dreamflow as we're kind of going through things here. Now that we've got our first app here, I'm just going to test it quickly because I want to see if this works. Let's put in learn Spanish and then do get my 100 steps. Description, the current experience level, beginner. I am going on a holiday to Spain. Desired timeline in 6 months. Challenges or constraints. I struggle with timekeeping and finding time to practice. Let's generate my 100 steps. Let's see if this works. So we've got learn Spanish is our goal, and now we want to create an app. We're creating an app here that lets you learn Spanish in 100 steps, or do anything in 100 steps. Like that's the goal that I'm turning into my 100 steps here in this 100 simple steps app. It's saying that it's generating here. Now I haven't put in my OpenAI API key. We're going to figure that out in a second. Whilst this is working, I want to show you a few things here in Dreamflow. Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for people who are building apps with AI and want to actually launch their app and get real customers. It's called the AI App Builders Academy. So if you're building an AI app with Bolt or Lovable or Cursor or any of these AI tools, and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then this is the community for you. Inside, you'll get access to a community of other builders, as well as my 30-day app course, helping you go from idea to app to a profitable launch in just 30 days. You'll also get access to weekly calls with live workshops and training, as well as all of my startup frameworks and resources, and 24/7 support from the community to help you answer any questions or problems you're having with building and launching your AI app. So if you're building an app with AI and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then head over to school.com/AI apps to find out more. I'll see you there. So you have your preview in the middle here. This is the preview of the app you're building. You have your agent on the right hand side here. And this is where you can chat and you can change it basically between any of the AI models here. So you've got Claude Sonnet 4, Gemini 2.5 Pro, GPT-5. It's on auto at the moment. Attach images. One really nice little feature here is very similar to Leap actually, is that you have this idea of threads. So you can see your past chat threads with the agent, and you can also create a new thread. This is a really, really great way of building, by basically building one feature at a time, and you give the AI agent fresh context so that it isn't skewed by any of the previous chat history every time you create a new thread. And so if I'm starting to build a new feature here, I might do new thread, and then I tell the AI agent to build the feature. I would then make any amends to that feature that I wanted, and once I was happy with the feature, I would then just create a new thread, and I could always go back through my history and see the threads that I had worked on before. So let's go back into this thread here, and you just get a really clear view of every single change that the agent is making here as well. So I've got my 100 steps here to learning Spanish. The last one is enjoy your trip to Spain, and the first one is set a clear goal, and we can check these off as we go. I don't like the red as the completed status. We should probably change that to green. And so looking at the preview window here in the middle, we can zoom in and out, we can reload the app here, we can stop the app from running. You can see the code here, so you can actually go into the code files, and this is a code editor, so I can just edit any of this code in the project here just from the code view and open up multiple tabs, which is great. I can also do split, so I can have the preview and the code on the right hand side as well. And this is where I was saying that this tool actually works really nicely from a development point of view as well, and that's not necessarily something that you want to be doing, but if you build an app that you do end up getting paying customers for, and you do want to scale this, and it is built primarily in Dreamflow, you can bring a developer into this project in Dreamflow. Now they might want to work on the code outside of Dreamflow, but it's a great option to have to be able to edit the code directly in the editor here. And I think that's something that a lot of other AI app building tools kind of shy away from a little bit. Another thing that I want to just cover here is the widget tree on the left. So this is more like a visual kind of design view of all of the things that are in your app, and basically combine, if I close the agent for a second and open up properties, so this kind of gives you more of a design view of your app. So if I want to change, like this is the header section on the steps screen, so we've got learn Spanish, so this is the text, this is the title here, you can see it's pulling that from the code, so I can actually just increase the size of this. Let's put this to 64, and that will make that bigger. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that back because that is way too big. And so let's remove that value from there. Just let it go back to that size. But you can edit your app in this kind of like design view, which is amazing because it allows you to kind of jump between these three different workflows of coding to vibe coding to designing your app, all in the same view, just with these collapsible horizontal panels. And I can just view the preview like full screen there if I want to as well. You've got these other tools on the left hand side. So if I go to theme, it can load themes basically, and there are themes in Dreamflow that you can select and load into your app. There's not many of them at the moment because they've just launched templates, and themes might also be the same here. You can go into this, if you click on assets in the left here, you can see all of the assets in your project, and I can actually upload assets directly into the folder here rather than having to add them like to my code or like give them to the agent and tell it where to upload them. I can just directly upload the files there. And you've also got this Supabase and this Firebase integration here. So if I go over to Supabase, for example, if I click connect to Supabase now, let's open the agent again. So I'm going to connect this to Supabase. This opens Supabase for me, so I can then authorize Dreamflow to access my Supabase account, and that gives Dreamflow access to do anything within my Supabase account, from like creating projects to editing the projects, adding tables, updating the database schema, all of those things that you would add in Supabase, the same way that Lovable would kind of do that for you if you're prompting it to make changes in Supabase. And you can see here on the left hand side, so now this is set up, it's creating the project setup, it's setting up the project in Supabase, and it's then going to generate the Supabase code, and then it's going to deploy the schema to Supabase to set up the database and authentication for my app. And what I want to do next is I want to just go through and add an onboarding flow with an authentication step that uses Supabase in this app in the second prompt here in a new thread. So let's go back to my screen here. So I've got my learn Spanish goal here, and I can go through these steps. Learn Spanish alphabet, start with basic vocabulary, practice daily greetings, create flashcards. This is pretty good, and you can see your progress for that goal under there towards your 100 steps. And yeah, if I go over to Firebase, you can also connect Firebase in the same way there as well. If I come back to Supabase here, it should still be creating the project. You've got an undo and a redo button, like very familiar to visual editing, like graphics tools or like Figma or whatever that you're kind of used to from a design point of view. And if you look down in the bottom bar here, you've also got this branch here, which is main. So branches are coming soon to Dreamflow, so that means you'll be able to basically create multiple branches and then work on the code in different branches on your app. You can refresh the dependencies. You might not need to use that if you're non-technical. You can show the debug console here, so this is super useful for actually debugging your app. So if an error happens in your app, that will show up in the console and you'll be able to copy and paste that back to the agent. A really useful feature in the preview window as well is you can just hit this add screenshot button here and it will add a screenshot of the preview screen that you're looking at to the agent so that you can just get it to do something on that screen, which is super useful. And then you've got any issues and warnings and information down the bottom right hand corner for your app as well. So we can see there Supabase has created the project, and if I go over to Supabase and go to my dashboard, you'll be able to see that Dreamflow has created, now which one it is I can't remember, it will be this one I think, it's created a project in Supabase because I tested this before, so I've got another one. You can rename this. That's just some sort of name that Dreamflow has generated. And this is my database project and authentication and backend and everything in Supabase like that was created for me in Dreamflow. So let's click generate client code. This is going to do a new thread on the right hand side, which is basically generating the Supabase client code for the project. And it's going to guide me through connecting my project in Supabase. So it's generated the code here. So we've got open the Supabase panel from the left hand side, click connect, follow the setup instructions, complete the project setup and select your target platforms. Once you've connected, I'll be able to generate the complete Supabase client code for you. Please let me know once you've completed the Supabase connection setup. So we have completed, so let's say this has ticked this off a little bit too soon in the right hand side here. I've completed the Supabase connection setup, and it's also really nice in the agent that it separates these messages with like an up and down arrow, so I can actually go back and forth between the different messages like this in the chat. Especially useful because AI likes to provide tons and tons of information back in its messages. So I'll wire up the Supabase client in your app, add a simple centralized service you can reuse across screens. I'll also ensure the app initializes Supabase at the start. So now it's going through the project and it's setting up Supabase in this app, which is perfect. Whilst the agent is working on that Supabase integration, I'll also show you the inspect mode here. So you can toggle inspect mode in the preview and you can click on any of these elements and you can see in the properties, I can click on these elements and it's going to give me the properties the same way as clicking in the widget tree would do in the left hand side. And so if I want to change a heading really quickly, I can actually just come in here and say, let's change the background color of this section, or let's change the layout for this section because this is kind of doing it like this at the moment, and actually I want to center this, so that will center the heading there, and let's change that back, which is a really great way of editing the design for your app if you're a little bit design minded like I am. So for example down here, I wonder, there's not like a background bar to that section, but I might want to make this card stand out a little bit more. So let's change the background color of this card to, and you can see here in this theme, it's basically created an entire theme from all of the colors that are in my app, so I can keep things consistent. So I can select whatever color from this list that I want to use for my card. I'm going to select that one. That's going to be the text color, I think. Let's have a look. Okay, so that's not updating because actually that agent is generating, and so the preview doesn't reflect any of the changes. And so let's wait for the agent to finish before we actually make any other changes in the app. So the agent is now finished here. So if I do click on inspect here and change the background color, I'm going to just try and change it to a different color. There we go. So it is working. So you can just change the color of this stuff from here by going into inspect mode and then clicking on the element that you want to change, which is super useful. So the agent has now completed the code generation for Supabase. So I'm now going to hit deploy schema changes. So this should deploy the schema changes for the app into my Supabase project that I've connected this to. And the thing that I want to do next after we've done this is to then create a simple onboarding flow with a login and a sign up page that we can basically test the Supabase authentication with. So now let's do a new thread in the agent and let's ask it to, let's create a simple onboarding flow with 3 key features leading into a sign up login screen using Supabase authentication. Make sure to connect any goals to the user account and create the correct tables for this in the database. The sign up would just use email and password for now. So let's send that to the agent and get it to create this onboarding flow. And this should create us a simple onboarding flow leading into our app that's going to have a sign up page, and then it's going to get into the app. And this is one thing that I would highly recommend adding to your app is you need to have an onboarding flow. If you're building a mobile app, you need to have a few pages when someone downloads the app that they see a couple of, even if it's just very, very basic, it's just like, welcome to this app. Here's a key feature, here's a key feature, and here's a login screen, and then here's a paywall. That can be like your very simple version of the onboarding flow, but you need to have that onboarding flow in order to help get people to sign up to create their account, and also to prompt users to pay for your app upfront as well. A lot of people, they kind of go to the free trial model where you would test the app out first and then you might want to pay after like 30 days or 14 days. But I think what's really, really key with monetizing these mobile apps is just to put a paywall up front at the end of the onboarding flow. Not a lot of people will pay from it, but some people will, and that is a really, really great way to kind of maximize the amount of money that you're able to make from your app once you have launched it on the App Store. Now, there are a bunch of other things that you need to do to actually get your app on the App Store as well. You need to create a developer account, so you need to create an Apple developer account and a Google developer account. You'll need to create your app on App Store Connect for Apple, and you'll need to create your app on the Play Store for Google with those developer accounts. And then if you go to publish up in the top right up here, what you can basically do is you have your App Store deployment settings here, and you basically add in the details for your app, like the bundle ID and all of these pieces of information, which is what you'll get when you create your app using your Apple developer account, and then you do submit to App Store via Dreamflow. And that is a really, really quick way to get your app submitted to the App Store. The only other piece you need to integrate here is payments, and you can do that using Revenuecat, which I'm going to show you how to set up after we finish setting up the onboarding with the Supabase login and sign up. So the agent has finished building this onboarding flow, and it's basically given me a plan of what it's done here. So add a 3-slide onboarding flow that funnels users to authentication, implement email, password, sign up with Supabase, create unified goal repositories, store goals in Supabase when signed in, make Supabase initialization safe when no backend is connected, update the app entry to route users onboarding to auth to home, new screens. It's added the onboarding screens here, and it's also given me a Supabase setup reminder. So in Dreamflow, open the Supabase panel and complete setup to connect your project, which is done. Then in Supabase SQL editor, create the tables and policies already included as SQL comments at the bottom of lib services goal repository.dart. So let's go and find that file, because I didn't think there was anything manual needed to be done here, but there might still need to be stuff that's done. So let's go into services and let's say goal repository.dart. And so let's scroll down here. So we've got a little bit of comments here. SQL to create the required tables, run in Supabase once edited. So this has given me steps here, but I'm not entirely sure how I actually do this. So this is not SQL like here to actually create these, which is interesting. So we're going to see like whether this actually works or not, and this is not SQL either, so I'm not sure if we need to do that or not. Let's actually just wait and test the app after it's loaded and see how this is working. So let's have a look in the debug console, see what's going on here. So you can see like there's a lot of stuff happening here. Essentially something's causing it to not load, and this is why having the console here is super useful, because if you got stuck on this screen without seeing the console, you wouldn't know what's going on. And if you just look in the console, I can see that this loop is happening, this error is happening over and over and over again. And so what we're going to need to do is we're just going to stop this, and then we're going to copy this over and say, I'm getting this error in the console when the app is loading, can you investigate and fix the issue? in the code. Let's see if it can fix this. So let's close the debug console. Let's just see what the agent says about fixing this error on the right hand side here. So it looks like it's going through and inspecting each of these screens in the app to see if there's any issues related to this error that it can fix. Alright, so Dreamflow has fixed the error that we were getting here, and we can now see the onboarding flow in the middle for our app. So we've got a skip button and we've got our little carousel on the right hand side here, so we can go through these screens to go through our onboarding. So track your progress, build daily momentum, and if we click get started, what we can do here is we can test the email and password sign up in Supabase. Now I'm not 100% sure this is going to work because we haven't created the table. It doesn't look like the tables have been created in our database in Supabase, and so you might come up against some snagging issues here with the Supabase connection, and with actually it says no file selected, no migration files found, so I'm not sure what is going on here. There's no tables. Let's just test it in the app here and see what happens. But we now have, at least we have an onboarding flow in our app that we can test. Okay, Supabase is not connected, so let's do a new thread here in the right hand side and let's try and get Supabase working. So we've gone through the steps on the left. Agent generated Supabase client code, deploy schema changes. I'm going to click that again. No migration file selected. Select migration file. No migration files found. Let's just regenerate the code here. So it's saying the config file already exists. Let me check the pubspec.yaml to ensure the Supabase Flutter dependency is properly added. Perfect. I can see that the Supabase client code has already been partially implemented. Now let me generate the SQL migrations to set up the database schema, then update the models to better support Supabase operations. Let me check if any Supabase migration files already exist in the project. And so this is where the kind of agent kind of capabilities of this chat on the right hand side come into play a little bit here, because this is actually searching through the code base and trying to find these things. And this kind of like multi-step workflow is what we're seeing a lot more in a lot of these agent kind of style code editing workflows now. So what have we got here? We've got no SQL migration files exist yet. Okay, so fine. So it just didn't generate the SQL migration files for Supabase. So it's gone ahead and it's created those Supabase tables.sql. So that will be what we need to use, this SQL file in Supabase to generate the right tables. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to connect basically our users and their login information to their account and their goals that they're generating in this app. And so we've also got policies.sql, that's for row level security on all of the tables in Supabase, which just keeps all of the data in Supabase secure. Let me update the models to include better support for Supabase operations, including database serialization. Now let me update the goal step model to also support Supabase operations. So it's kind of just going through and making all the changes that it needs to based on our Supabase setup. So if you are getting stuck with any of these points, either just ask the agent here to help you, or you can go back and you can redo some of the steps there with Supabase. So like we regenerated that Supabase client code and it hadn't actually generated the migration files there yet, so that will allow us to create the stuff in Supabase. So hopefully once this is finished, we'll basically be able to click deploy schema changes, and that was going to run the SQL commands like into Supabase so that it will create our tables. If not, we can kind of copy and paste that over and do it ourselves. So it said here, Supabase data, perfect. I've successfully generated Supabase client code for your project. Here's what was implemented: database schema and security, created SQL migration files. It would be good if I could click these with complete database schema, including users, goals, and goals setup. Goals, steps, tables, the proper foreign key relationships and row level security policies, updated goal and goal step, improve repository and services, complete integration. So the compilation completed successfully, no errors. Please test the authentication flow and goal management features to ensure everything works as expected. Now this is where AI isn't always 100% correct, because I don't know if these SQL migration files have been run in Supabase yet. So if I go back over to my database in Supabase and refresh that, there's still no tables created. So what we have to do, we're going to have to find these files in here in our code. So let's open our code and let's search for the Supabase. We've got Supabase tables, so let's copy this all over. So let's just do this manually. Basically, if you're doing this manually from these SQL files, what you want to do in Supabase is come over to this SQL editor and then just paste this in here and then run. So we've got an error in this SQL that's been generated here. So I'm just going to debug it with the Supabase AI assistant here. So it's trying to figure out what it should actually do. Paste the SQL. Meanwhile, here's some comment near not pitfalls. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take this error from Supabase. I'm just going to paste it back into Dreamflow and ask it why this might be failing, and to update it, because Dreamflow will have the context of the code for this app. So we're going to give it this error message and say, can you update these SQL files so that I can run these to generate the right tables in Supabase. For some reason, the migration file under schema deployment here is not being recognized by Dreamflow, which I'm assuming is going to be a bug that they're going to fix, because when you generate the code from this step here, it should show up these migration files here, which are basically the ones under Supabase here that it's created. Supabase tables, Supabase policies. What these do is they create the tables in your database that this, based on the setup for this app, that it will create the tables in Supabase that will store the information that your app needs, basically. And so those should be added here as migration files, and then Dreamflow should be able to deploy those schema changes for you to Supabase. So we've now got this thread on the right hand side here. It's basically reading these files. What has it said? So there's a lot of text here. The error happens because the version Supabase uses doesn't accept if not exists on create trigger. I updated both SQL files too, and then here's what it's updating all of the SQL files to do. So that's what it's updated in each of those files. If you'd like me to apply these changes to repository files, reply yes, apply changes, and I'll write them. Okay, we'll say yes, apply changes. So this should change those files. You go back here, so it's only read those files at this point. So this is going to help us basically fix. So you can see it's reading these files. I'll review your current SQL files and related data to align tables and schemas. Then I'll update the SQL to remove unsupported if not exists in triggers policies and make it impotent and Supabase safe. I don't know what that word means. It's very long. So here we go. It's reading these files, so it should write those updates to those files so we can put it back in Supabase. Okay, so we've got the Supabase tables SQL file. So let's copy this to the clipboard from there in the chat, and let's just select all of that in the schema, in the SQL editor in Supabase, and just run that again. It says a query has destructive operation. Make sure you're not accidentally removing something important. That's fine. We don't have anything in this project at this point, so we're just going to run that, and there we go. It says success, no rows returned. If you go back to our table editor, we should have our tables on the left hand side. So users unrestricted, goals unrestricted, goal steps unrestricted. These are unrestricted because they has no row level security yet, so we're going to do that in a separate SQL command here, which is the next file, which is Supabase policies.sql. So let's copy that to the clipboard as well. We'll go back to Supabase. Let's do a new snippet here. Let's paste that in, and then let's click run on the right hand side here, run this query again, and success. Okay, so if we go back to the table editor, great, we can see that we don't have that restricted thing on the tables here anymore, because all of these now have row level security and have been created based on our project here. So this is connected. We've got all the tables in Supabase that we needed to create from these migration files. Let's go back to the preview. I'm going to refresh the app. Let's not save that. And then we're basically going to try and sign up again here and see if this works with Supabase. And this should, if this works, create a user. Okay, so it says Supabase is not connected, so let's just add that in here to this. So let's say the tables and migration have been completed in Supabase. However, the sign up form in the app is giving me an error that it isn't connected to Supabase. Can you identify why this is happening and make sure the login and sign up component is working? Let's just say it is working correctly, because it will have the context of what working correctly actually is, or it should do, from creating this app. So here we go. We didn't need to attach those SQL files. So patch the code and validate compilation. We can actually remove those. Next time we do a change here, we can actually remove these files. It's kept those files like tagged in the chat because I'm currently in the same chat here of like fixing Supabase sign up and login. And that's generally a good way to work here. I would say like use a new thread every time you're kind of doing a new feature instead of just keeping on doing a new thread, because it's good to have for the agent to have context of what it's done before if it's working on the same thing. If you're starting something new, it's good to give it a clean slate generally. Okay, so it's identified the issue here basically. Supabase was never initializing because Supabase config.dart used string.from environment, so it's using some things basically in the file that is not correct. Fix updated Supabase config to read environment variables with proper keys and safe defaults. Verify the app files with no analyzer errors. Please try signing up and logging in again from the auth screen. Let's reload this and let's try again. Here we go. Something's happening. Okay, so we've created our account in our app. Let's go back to our table in Supabase. We should see a user in this table basically in our database. This is working correctly here, so we've got this hooked up. Email text created, updated, email, the goals and the goal steps. Goal steps is related to goals and goals is linked to users, and then that is working correctly. I'll go back to my table editor here. So that has not created a user in here. So let's just create a goal and then see if I log out and log back in, is it going to save again? So run a marathon. Let's get my 100 steps for that. Description, I am bad at running. Let's generate our 100 steps. Okay, perfect. We have created our run a marathon goal here with 100 steps, start a running journey. So a preliminary goal, begin with walking intervals, hydration awareness. Okay, let's go back from this to our main screen, and this hasn't saved it basically. So let's ask the agent, because we're still working in this Supabase kind of auth feature. Let's say when I sign up, no user is being created in Supabase, and when I create a goal, my goal is not saved to my account and does not show on my dashboard. Now maybe we should actually split this down into two separate questions, but I'm going to do it as one here. So this should basically try and it's still an issue related to Supabase creating the user in the users table here from this app, and that's what it should be doing. So what we're looking for here is, now that we've got our Supabase project connected, what we're looking for is we want a user to be created when we sign up in the app here in Supabase, when we're kind of testing that everything is working here. That's the whole point of doing this, and the reason why I like Dreamflow for this kind of workflow is that if you're doing this using another tool, what you often have to do is you have to take your code outside of the tool that you're using and then hook up Supabase and authentication and database in something like Cursor, which can be a little bit more technical. Here you've got an interface which you'll be kind of familiar with if you're used to using like Lovable or Bolt or those kind of style apps, where you basically kind of connect to Supabase through this view. But there are always going to be teething issues with this stuff, at least at the moment, until these platforms have fully figured this out, and that's what we're doing here. So understood, I'll inspect the Supabase configuration and the auth goal saving code. Now I'll open Supabase config and inspect pubspec.yaml and the auth and goal related files if dependencies and data mappings are correct. What I'm imagining is happening is that maybe the app isn't connected to like the right like project ID or something in Supabase. So we've got, this is the Supabase config file. So we have this. It looks like basically in here should be a way of us seeing, like, I think it's this one at the top here, basically the project in Supabase, this one, project ID. So that's the same as that, and that is, if we go into here and we go to the main page here, we're looking for the project ID. Yeah, so that's that one there. So that is correct. It does have the right project ID here. So it's made some changes here in this Supabase config.dart file, which is where the Supabase configuration is. It's rewritten a lot of this. It has added here like Supabase URL, Supabase anon key, which is kind of like replaced this bit at the top here. This should be, we didn't have those before. That looks right looking at it. We did have the URL, we didn't have the key in there, so it's still working to fix that. If we go to this file, Supabase config, it's making some other changes as well. Any analyzer errors from the changes and address them. So here's a focus fix plan I applied. Use Dreamflow injected Supabase credentials reliably, ensure users rows created, make goal step IDs valid when saving, fetch and link goals to the authenticated user. Why change Supabase initialization? Okay, let's go into the config first, the updated file. I'm going to close that and then reopen. So we've got the URL here, Supabase URL. We've got that anon key there, which is the one in here for this project. So let's go into the preview, reload this app, and then try and create an account again. And hopefully this time what we're going to get is we want to see a user being created in Supabase. So we're getting this error, authentication error, Supabase is not connected. So we're going around in a bit of a loop here basically. We've got this authentication error again. This always happens with, or can like very easily happen with these AI building tools, and I'm imagining that maybe what we'll get after this changes, we'll be able to create an account here, but we're not going to see it back in Supabase again, which would be the same thing that happened before. It's kind of going to go in a loop trying to fix this bug, and we can try some other ways to debug this. So we've got here that there's some issues here. Assertion failed, not sure. One thing that you can do if you're unsure about what is happening is you can always ask the agent in the chat that you're working in what's going on with any of these errors that are happening in the console, whether you're seeing them here or whether you're seeing them in like a web browser. You can also come over to something like just ChatGPT and just ask it what this means and say like, I'm building app in Flutter and guessing this error, and actually breaking down like what it means will actually help you to be able to prompt the right thing to fix the error when it's happening, and getting this error in the console. What does this mean and how can I fix it? So let's see. So in Dreamflow it said it found the root cause. Supabase was using, this is the same thing that it was again. So I updated it to read in Dreamflow's injected environment keys and added a debug log. Press the hot restart and try again. We're going to just restart the app and then try again here, and we're going to see if this works. So we're getting the same error here. I'm just going to prompt it to investigate further and find the cause of this before fixing. Let's send that off and let's go back to, so this is basically, it looks like this error that we're getting here is coming from Flutter, not the app code, which basically is to do with just how something is rendering. So like an animation, a timer, a stream or something. So we're not going to worry about that for now. That's not related to Supabase. The agent is now checking, basically looking deeper into the issue related to Supabase. Maybe it might not be doing it because we might already have an account here. Let's do sign in. Supabase is not connected. No, let's try another email. No, still not working. And we still don't have any users here in this table. So AI has said that it's found the issue, which is something that happens quite a lot here. So I found the issue. Supabase config read start defines using the actual URL and key as the name, which always returns empty. Thus initialize concludes Supabase isn't connected. I'll fix the configuration to read Supabase URL and Supabase anon key and keep the rest of the auth profile hooks intact. So it's now making those changes and restarting the app just to see if that's working. I'm just going to have a look at this. Okay, so it's added in default value to these like environment variables here, which it didn't. Okay, so that it looks like the value there was empty for these two environment variables. So it might have just been that I didn't have in that Supabase config.dart that we actually didn't have the right keys. So it's fixed the added safe fallbacks. Please try signing in again. Summary of changes. Okay, so let's restart the app and then let's try again. Okay, so we've signed in. It's got run a marathon, which is and that's something that I added before. So that is now working. But if I go over to Supabase, we have no users in the users. Do we have any goals? Let's try logging out of here. Well, we can't log out because stop the app. Let's start it again. And one thing that I did just there to kind of help break down fixing that bug a little bit more was I just changed the model to Claude Sonnet 4 rather than having it on auto. Sometimes just like choosing a different AI model can actually help fix the issue a little bit better, and generally would kind of default to Claude Sonnet 4 for most coding tasks here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and create a new user to see if it creates it. So password should be at least 6 characters. Okay, there we go. Is invalid. Okay, so one thing I've realized here is that we did have the confirmation email turned on in Supabase, which I think maybe is why the user wasn't being created in here. But let's just turn that off in Supabase. So we have authentication on the left hand side here, and if you can see, basically you have confirm email. Users will need to confirm their email address before signing in for the first time. Just uncheck that and click save. Something that I forgot to do. You'll need to turn that back on when you actually want to deploy your app, if you want users to confirm their email address before they sign up. But now let's refresh that again, and then I'm going to put in a different email address here, chris@gmail.com. So now I won't need to confirm that. Let's sign up. So we've signed in now. What I want to see is, okay, perfect. So now that we've turned off that confirmation on the email and sign up, we've actually got the user being created in Supabase here, which is perfect. And what I want to do is I'm going to create a goal. So run a marathon, get my 100 steps. So like, not good at running. Generate the steps. And then when we generate this goal, what we want to see is back in Supabase, we want to see that a goal has been created, that it's associated with the right user ID, and that the goal steps for that goal exist in these tables as well. And that will basically show us that this app is connected to Supabase and all working correctly. So we've got the steps generated here. We have run a marathon. If I go back, it's not added it down there. I'm going to refresh goals. Okay, there we go. So it's created that in Supabase, so it's just not showing it on the front end. And it's got all of these steps basically for run a marathon, and it is complete. So we know if it's complete or not. The step number. So everything is being created in the database correctly, which is great. So our database is hooked up and working. It's not displaying it correctly on the front end there, but we're going to leave that for now. What I want to do next is I want to just show you how to quickly, and it might take a little bit of time. Again, I'm not going to do the full process in the video. I want to show you how you can connect payments using Dreamflow as well. And so the tool you're going to want to use for payments is called Revenuecat. And Revenuecat is basically a payment processor for mobile apps, and it connects directly to your Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So what you'll need to make sure that you've got first is you'll need to make sure you've got an Apple developer account. So if you go to appledeveloper.apple.com, you'll be able to sign up for a developer account with Apple. And then if you go to play.google.com/console, you'll be able to sign up for a Google Play Store developer account there as well. Once you've done those, you basically will need to log in and then create your app, and that will give you a bundle ID and a bunch of other information about your app. Then after that, you want to come to Revenuecat. You want to create an account on Revenuecat, and Revenuecat is free. They don't charge you up until the first, I think, $2,000 or $2,500 that you make on your app. You'll create an account on Revenuecat, create your app, and then you connect it to the apps that you've created in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store on your developer accounts. And it sounds a little bit tricky, but these are just like some simple steps to go through. Once they're connected up, you can go to the quick start documentation for Revenuecat. And what we want to do is we want to connect our app up to our Revenuecat account. So the app is connected to Revenuecat, and that is how we accept payments. And then Revenuecat is connected to the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And that is how all of the payments are kind of connected to each other, and how we can start accepting payments through our app. What you want to do is just copy this URL for like the SDK, basically quick start. SDK means software development kit. So this is how you basically set up something like Revenuecat or a third party kind of like tool into your app. We're going to go back to Dreamflow, and I'm just going to create a new thread here, and let's ask Dreamflow, let's set up payments in our app using Revenuecat. You can find the quick start guide for setting this up here. I want to add a paywall screen after the user has signed up, asking them to upgrade to a paid membership or continue on a free trial. So what you'll do is in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, you'll create the different payment options for your app. And then with Revenuecat, you'll connect to those, and that will also have your payment options in. And then when you connect Revenuecat to this, you'll basically like need to ask for the paywall that you're creating. It needs to be connected to those different products that that user would be paying for. And then we just want to basically check that those payments are being associated with a user in Supabase, and they'll be like basically adding a few extra bits into our database and making sure that this all works. to start off with, let's just send this prompt off, and what we're going to do is, let's just send off that first prompt and then see what Dreamflow comes back with. Because on the right hand side here, this is a coding agent that's building the app for us. This is going to read that documentation, and this is another really good tip here that I will use whilst building apps, is just if you have any documentation that is going to be beneficial for your coding agent to build your app, and instead of thinking of this as a tool that builds your app, think of it as like a junior developer that you're going to kind of need to provide documentation and guidance for to actually create your app for you. And so giving it documentation like that is super helpful, because it will guide it as to how it can implement this other software that it will be speaking to. So what it's going to do is add Revenuecat Flutter SDK and create a Revenuecat service wrapper, add a paywall screen, wire the paywall into the sign up flow after successful sign up, provide functionality to restore purchases and check entitlement, use existing UI widgets, and then basically questions and choices I need from you. So this is guiding me through the entire setup here. So Revenuecat credentials and product IDs. Do you have a Revenuecat project set up? I'll need your Revenuecat public SDK keys. There are separate keys for Apple and Google, but Revenuecat uses a single public SDK in most setups. Provide the Revenuecat product identifiers. Free trial versus paywall behavior. Do you want to force an upgrade, block content until purchase, or show the paywall as optional? So you'll need to answer. And this is where I think it's very easy to think well, I'm just going to create an app and get users to pay for it, and then that will be able to make money. These are all really important questions here, and the agent is actually guiding me through this process a little bit. So let's implement everything using placeholder product IDs. Let's do that first, and then we can swap them out later. Confirm if you want optional paywall and trial or forced paywall. And let's do a trial plus paywall. It's going to use placeholders, desired trial length. Trial length would be 14 days. That's maybe a little bit too long. I'm going to do 7 days. So you'll need to start figuring out this detail, is basically what I was getting at, is that the more you kind of get into this, the more detailed questions there are going to be. And these all contribute to whether your app will be successful or not. Is what type of free trial are you using? What does the onboarding flow look like? How do users sign up? What is the user experience? There's a lot of stuff within that where you can basically kind of maximize how likely a user is going to be to actually pay for your product. So trial length would be 7 days. Once you confirm, I'll implement the changes, run to check the errors. After implementation, I'll show you exactly which files I changed, where I added the paywall in the flow. Let's proceed to build this with placeholders. And then this is going to go away and build that paywall. And what we can do here after this is also, in the same chat, just prompt it to say, I also want to make sure that payments are being associated with the right users in Supabase. If it needs to, it will generate you a SQL file that you can put back into Dreamflow to create a new table for payments potentially. And then you'll just need to kind of keep testing that to make sure that it's all working as you're building this stuff up. But hopefully you can see it hasn't taken me that long, maybe just under an hour, to kind of go through and do all of this stuff. And we've already got Supabase hooked up with Authentication. The tables are created, the information is being stored in the database, and we're now setting up payments with Revenuecat. And we've got a working app with functionality that's useful. It's fairly straightforward. I don't love the design of it, I'll be honest, but there's other things that you could do to improve here later, and there's tons of stuff in Dreamflow to actually start to improve the design stuff, as I mentioned earlier, where you can do inspect mode and then actually make edits to this stuff, inline if you want to change the styling or the design for this, or prompt kind of bigger design changes here. But you can see how relatively quickly you can go through and set up all of these key parts of your app if you just know the right steps to go through to set things up. And this is all done in the same view in Dreamflow, just in this one interface here in a web browser, where you can see everything that's going on with your app and make any changes as you need to. Alright, so it's compiled the app to ensure that the paywall and Revenuecat service build cleanly. It's added a bunch of files in here related to Revenuecat and the Revenuecat configuration. So it's added Revenuecat Flutter SDK, created a safe wrapper service, built a clean paywall that offers 7 day for a trial or a free plan. Now, a free plan, I kind of asked for a paid plan, but we can always change that. Route new signups to the paywall screen. Signed in users go to home as before. Make everything web preview safe with graceful fallbacks. Compile and fix any SDK. Okay, so let's reload the app and then let's test this to see. I really need to add in a logout button to this app. We're going to stop it and then start it again, see if that works. That would help actually be able to kind of like log in and log out here for sure. I just did an extra change here, said add a logout button so I can log out of my account, because I wasn't able to log out of my account and actually test that it was working, so I just needed to add that in there. So let's create a new account here and just see if the paywall is working here. So I'll sign up with my new account. No paywall is being shown. So let's try and fix this. So I've just prompted here, after I sign up, the paywall isn't being shown. Make sure to show the paywall after the user signed up with a new account before taking them into the app. So hopefully that should just fix here. So it's going to inspect the authentication flow and see why the paywall screen isn't being presented. It did build it that way, so I imagine that it thinks that the paywall screen is being shown, or something in the code is saying that it should be shown, but something's preventing it from being shown here that it's going to have to basically figure out there. We've got the logout button working in the account. It just isn't showing the paywall after I sign in. Okay, so now when we sign up here, we should get a paywall. Now we signed up for the first time, we sign in, it's still not showing the paywall here. So we have error, failed to insert from users, could not find the email verified column of users in the schema cache. Let's go to users here. It's creating the user, it's just not verified, which is fine. That doesn't matter. But it is not showing the paywall screen here. I'm not sure why. There we go. So I tried it again. All I did was I just tried it again there and it worked. It just shows you how fickle software is and code can be sometimes. So now we have this paywall here. So continue with free plan, start 7-day free trial. I wouldn't do a 7-day free trial and a continue with free plan. I would do like a paid option here. So this isn't quite right, this setup, but it does show you how you kind of like set up the paywall screen, connect it to Revenuecat, and then assuming that you've got your developer accounts for Apple and for Google set up and you've got those linked in Revenuecat, that should start working, and you'll be able to test Revenuecat with fake card details to make sure everything is working before you actually publish to the app stores. You can do that basically by testing it in a sandbox, so that would basically be able to copy this kind of website over to the agent in Dreamflow again and ask it to allow you to do testing for payments in a sandbox with Revenuecat. Let it set that up for you based on this guide. That basically just gives your app like a different environment to test the payments in. If you come down here to test your app and go to sandbox testing, you can then basically test that in the app. And so all you do once you set that up is you test that the payment goes through, that a payment shows up, and verify that after you've completed the purchase, that is actually unlocking the app for the user and that is working correctly. And then you would change it back out of the sandbox to be the actual production kind of environment of Revenuecat. But that is how to build an app with Dreamflow, how to set up your database with Supabase, how to connect payments with Revenuecat. And then if you do want to publish this to the App Store, what you can do from Dreamflow here is you just click publish in the top right and you go to iOS or Android. You'll need to put in your information from your developer accounts for Apple and for Google, and then you'll be able to submit them to the App Store through Dreamflow. Test them on your phone and then actually get that published to the App Store. If you're wondering about what it looks like in the App Store as well, you'll be able to add that all in the Play Store console for Google and App Store Connect for Apple, which is basically your developer accounts for both of those. When you create your app, you can upload all of the screenshots to the App Store and the icon and all of that stuff there as well. Now there is a lot of stuff to figure out here, but I do think Dreamflow is one of the best platforms out there at the moment for allowing you to kind of connect and bring this stuff all together just in one place and actually get an app live on the App Store without needing to go into Cursor or Claude Code or do anything more complex outside of one of these platforms. And so let's get into my final thoughts. So it took a bit of time, but we did eventually get there in the end with Dreamflow. And even though it took a little bit of time, I do think Dreamflow is one of the best AI app building tools out there for mobile apps, just because it contains all of those elements in the same view. You've got your connection to Supabase, even if it doesn't work 100% of the time. You've got your widget tree, so you can kind of see it in like a design view and make design changes. You can inspect your app in the preview. You can grab a screenshot from the preview window and put it into your agent view. It's an AI coding agent that works in multiple steps to kind of fix and implement these other things into your app as well. And you can see how I went through setting up the initial functionality for the app, connecting Supabase, running the SQL migrations in Supabase to make sure the right tables were being created for users, and then testing the user authentication flow to make sure that users were being created in Supabase, and then adding in payments using the Revenuecat SDK, and also going through how you can set up payments just by by creating a developer account with Apple and Google, connecting that into Revenuecat, and then building Revenuecat into your app using a paywall in your onboarding flow to enable users to actually pay for your app and then publish it from Dreamflow onto the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Now AI makes this a ton easier, but there is still a lot of steps to go through, and so it's understandable if you're coming up against errors and thinking that it's going to be able to do this in minutes. It still takes a little bit of investment, a little bit of time, and there isn't really a lot of content out there at the moment because it's not like a super interesting or engaging topic to talk about when we're talking about databases and payments and authentication and how to actually do that using these AI tools. And so that's why I wanted to cover it here for you today in this new AI tool that not a lot of people know about called Dreamflow. And if you do want to try out Dreamflow for building your mobile app, you can try it out over at dreamflow.app. And if you do have an app idea and you want to start building your app with AI, then I've got a community helping people do just that with over 100 people building apps with AI and launching their MVPs and actually getting paying customers. And you can check that out over at school.com/AI apps to learn more. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.
Build great products. Build great products.